There is a tree in the Amazon rainforest that grows over 200 feet tall. It survives hurricanes. It survives drought. It survives decades of storms that flatten everything around it. Scientists studied it for years, trying to understand how. And what they found was simple. Its roots go deeper than any other tree in the forest. Not taller, not wider, just deeper. Now imagine a generation of young people who were never allowed to grow roots, who were told that roots were old-fashioned, that tradition was oppression, that values were just opinions, that right and wrong were whatever you decided they were. What happens to a tree with no roots when the storm comes? This is the story of that generation. This is the story of you. Meet Alex, 22 years old, Chicago, Illinois. By every measure of modern success, Alex had everything going for him. Smart, talented, ambitious, a college degree hanging on his wall, a LinkedIn profile that looked impressive, a future that looked bright from the outside, but inside, Alex felt like he was floating, not flying, floating, the way a balloon floats when you let go, drifting in whatever direction the wind happens to be blowing that day. He changed his beliefs every few months. He changed his friend groups every year. He changed his values depending on which online community he was spending time in. One month he was convinced that success was everything. The next month he believed success was meaningless. One week he had strong opinions about everything. The next week he had no opinions about anything. His mother once asked him, "Alex, what do you actually stand for?" And Alex opened his mouth to answer. And nothing came out, not because he was stupid, not because he was bad, but because nobody had ever actually helped him build an answer to that question. Alex is not alone. In fact, Alex is everywhere. He is in every college campus in America, in every city in the UK, Canada, and Australia. He is in every group chat, every comment section, every late-night conversation that ends with the same question. But who am I really? Researchers who study Generation Z describe them as uniquely rootless, a generation that has inherited a moral landscape stripped of shared meaning, drifting through ideologies that promise belonging but deliver only bitterness. That word, rootless, is the most important word in this entire video. Remember it. To understand Alex, we need to understand what was taken away before he was even old enough to know it existed. Every generation before Gen Z grew up with anchors, not perfect anchors, but anchors. They had faith, churches, mosques, temples, places that gave them a moral framework, a sense of something bigger than themselves, a community that held them accountable and held them together. They had stable families, not perfect, but present. Dinner tables where values were passed down not through a lecture but through 1,000 small daily moments. They had real communities, neighborhoods where people knew each other, where the old man on the corner had known your grandfather, where your failures had consequences and your character actually mattered to the people around you. And they had history, a story they belonged to, a past that gave the present meaning, a future worth building toward. Pause. Gen Z grew up, and all of that was gone. Not replaced, gone. Church attendance collapsed. Families fractured. Communities dissolved into online spaces where nobody truly knows anyone. History was rewritten or dismissed entirely. And into that empty space rushed the loudest voices on the internet, telling young people that the old roots were oppressive, that tradition was the enemy, that freedom meant having no commitments, no obligations, no permanent values at all. And Gen Z believed it, because they had nothing else to hold on to. As one philosopher put it, when the roots are removed, people search for belonging in a barren landscape, and they will find it in dark places. Alex found his dark place at 22. He found a group online that gave him clear answers, clear enemies, clear identity, finally something solid to hold on to. But it wasn't roots. It was a cage painted to look like a home. The moment that changed Alex's life came from the most unexpected place. His grandfather, Grandpa Ray, was 74 years old. He had grown up in rural Mississippi. He had faced poverty, loss, and hardship that Alex couldn't even imagine. And yet every time Alex visited him, there was something about Grandpa Ray that he could never quite explain. A stillness. A certainty. Not arrogance, certainty. The kind that doesn't need to argue because it isn't afraid. One evening, sitting on the back porch, Alex finally asked, "Grandpa, how do you always know what the right thing to do is?" "I never know anymore. Everything just feels relative, like nothing is actually true or false, right or wrong. How do you have that kind of clarity?" Grandpa Ray was quiet for a long time. Then he said something Alex would never forget. He said, "Son, I grew up with nothing. No money, no connections, no guarantees. But I had something most people today don't have. I had a father who taught me that your character is the only thing nobody can ever take from you. Your job can be taken. Your money can be taken. Your health can be taken. But who you are, the values you choose to live by, that is yours forever. The problem with your generation is not that you're weak. It's that nobody taught you that having strong values is not a limitation. It is a foundation. A tree without roots doesn't experience freedom, son. It experiences the terror of every wind that blows." Alex didn't say anything, but something cracked open inside him. Not broke, cracked open, the way a seed cracks open before something starts to grow. Grandpa Ray was pointing at something that every generation before ours understood, but that our generation was never taught. Values are not a cage. They are a compass. There is a difference between being free to do anything and knowing what is worth doing. Real freedom is not the absence of moral commitment. Real freedom is knowing so clearly who you are and what you stand for, that nothing, no pressure, no trend, no storm can blow you off course. Think about the people you admire most. Not the loudest, not the most followed, but the ones you genuinely admire. Are they people with no values? People who shift with every wind? People who believe whatever is convenient that week? Or are they people who stand for something? People who would say no when everyone around them says yes? People whose word means something? People who are the same in private as they are in public. That consistency, that rootedness, is not old-fashioned. It is the rarest and most powerful thing a human being can possess. Now here is what Gen Z was never told. You don't build roots by waiting until you figure everything out. You build roots by choosing. You choose one value and you live it, completely, imperfectly, but consistently. Maybe that value is honesty. Maybe it is loyalty. Maybe it is courage. Maybe it is simply this: I will treat every person I meet with the same dignity I want to be treated with. One value, lived completely, is worth more than 1,000 opinions held loosely. Because here is the deepest truth that Grandpa Ray understood. Character is not what you post. Character is not what you claim to believe. Character is what you do when it costs you something. When telling the truth means losing the argument. When keeping your commitment means missing the party. When doing the right thing means doing it alone. That is where your roots grow, not in the sunshine, in the storm. Gen Z did not lose its moral compass because it is a bad generation. It lost its compass because the institutions that once passed values down, family, faith, community, history, were dismantled faster than anything could replace them. That is not your fault. But finding your roots, that is your responsibility. And it starts tonight. Conclusion. Alex still visits Grandpa Ray every few months. He still doesn't have everything figured out. He still makes mistakes. He still has questions he can't answer. But now he has something he didn't have before. A foundation. 3 values he chose deliberately. 3 values he has committed to even when it's hard, even when nobody is watching. Even when the internet tells him those values are outdated. Honesty, loyalty, courage, simple, ancient, unshakable. And for the first time in his adult life, Alex doesn't feel like a balloon floating on the wind. He feels like a tree. So here's what I want to leave you with tonight. The world will always have storms. Your generation will face challenges no generation before you has ever faced. The noise will get louder. The confusion will get deeper. The pressure to drift will never stop. But a tree with deep roots does not fear the storm. It needs it because the storm is what proves how deep the roots go. So grow your roots, choose your values, live them when it costs you something, because the world doesn't need another generation of people who stand for everything and therefore stand for nothing. The world needs people who know exactly who they are, people who cannot be bought, cannot be moved, cannot be broken, people with roots. Be that person. Thanks for watching Wizitalas. See you in the next story.